Good morning. We are fortunate today to have special music by our own Jennifer Bacmeister, recently returned from a triumphant appearance at the National Flute Association convention in Atlanta. Jennifer's first piece is a Beethoven sonatina. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Our opening words were written by Mary Oliver. Every day, I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It is what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass. We welcome our gifted Director of Lifespan Religious Education, Beth Curtis, who will share with us today's time for all ages.
Good morning. This morning, I want to talk about faith. And faith can be pretty tricky to talk about because it's often about something that hasn't happened yet. It's something we hope for and something we trust will come, but it hasn't happened yet. In Florida, for example, when September heat feels endless, we have faith that cooler days will come. Another example is that each night we trust, we have faith that come morning the sun will rise again. Today, we know this happens because the earth spins on its axis. But long ago, people didn't know this. They simply had faith in the sunrise, and it was often tied into their religion. Across history, people have greeted the sun with songs, blessings, and rituals, trusting its light would return in the morning. The story we'll hear today The Way to Start a Day, written by Bird Baylor, celebrates those traditions and invites us to wonder how we might begin each day with gratitude, hope, and faith. Now, on the first page, we see an illustration from the 70s, when this book was originally published, of a young person facing towards a rock bluff of a rising sun. And we begin. The way to start a day is this. Go outside and face the east and greet the sun with some kind of blessing or chant or song that you made up yourself and you keep for early morning. The way to make the song is, don't try to think what words to use until you are standing there alone. When you feel the sun, you'll feel the song too. Just sing it. But don't think you're the only one who has ever worked this magic. Your caveman brothers knew what to do. Your caveman sisters knew too. They sang to help the sun come up, and they lifted their hands to its power. The morning needs to be sung to. A new day needs to be honored. And here we see cave people looking at the sunrise from inside of a cave riding a buffalo-like animal. And it was the 70s after all. People have always known. They didn't chant at dawn, didn't they chant at dawn in the sun temples of Peru? And leap and sway to Aztec flutes in Mexico? And drum sunrise songs in the Congo? And here we see a drummer chanting with 4 women dancing, silhouetted by the sun. And ring 1,000 small gold bells in China. And on this page, we see a large golden Buddha nestled in the mountains with the rising sun. Didn't the pharaohs of Egypt say the only sound at dawn should be the sound of songs that pleased the morning sun? They knew what songs to sing. People always seemed to know, and everywhere they knew what gifts the sun wanted. In some places they gave gold. In some places they gave flowers. Some places fire or feathers and good thoughts. Sacred smoke blown to the 4 directions. But everywhere they knew to give something. And everywhere they knew to turn their faces eastward. And some people still know. They know exactly how to start a day. Their blessings float on the wind over Pueblo cornfields in New Mexico. Long before dawn, they were already waiting in Japan with prayers. And they were gathering at little shrines in India with marigolds in their hands. They were bathing in the sacred Ganges River as the sun came up. And this is kind of a groovy image of several people bathing in a body of water. And high on a mesa edge in Arizona, they are holding a baby towards the sun. They speak the child's new name so the sun can hear and know the child's name as well. It had to be sunrise, and it had to be that first sudden moment. That's when all the power of life is in the sky. Many people welcome the sun each day, and the way they start is just by looking east at dawn. When they look east tomorrow, you can too. Your song will be an offering. And you'll be one more person in one more place at one more time in the world, saying hello to the sun, letting it know you are there. That's the way to start a day. And with that, we end our story. And now I wonder, although the sun rose a few hours ago, how will you perhaps not start your day, but continue this day? What words or actions or blessings will you carry with you? However you choose, may it be with faith in the light, in one another, and in the possibilities of this new-ish day.
Before our opening hymn, I want to welcome Garrett Kaplan, who's at the piano. He's a familiar face because he has provided wonderful special music for us before. Today, he's here for the first time in a new role as one of our talented accompanists, and we are delighted to welcome him. As our song leaders come forward, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. The words are also on the screen. We'll sing all the verses. I think he's a keeper. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. I invite Bruce Crystal to come forward and light our chalice. Today I've made a special request that Bruce please wait and light the chalice after I have finished reading these words of Reverend Margot Reinhardt. I think you'll see why. As we light our chalice, may our breathing pause as we notice the slight moment when light delicately flutters before becoming the full flame. May this moment of possibility be a risk-filled invitation to pour ourselves into the heat of curiosity, mischief, celebration, and delight. Thank you, Bruce. Good morning again. My name is Elizabeth DeCoux, and it's my privilege to serve as your worship leader today. We are a church named Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church, which we often abbreviate as BBUUC. We're so glad you have joined us today. I want to extend a special welcome to any first-time or returning visitors. If you are a visitor, we invite you to stop by the welcome table back close to the entrance. At that table, you can learn more about this congregation and about Unitarian Universalism. You can get a name tag to help us greet you by name. If you want to know more about this congregation and about Unitarian Universalism, we offer classes to help you learn more about our faith. You can find out more about them at the welcome table. I also invite you to join us in the back after the service for refreshments and fellowship. At fellowship, there will be chairs reserved for those who may have mobility issues. I hope to see you all there. There are a lot of activities going on at our church, and some of them may be just what you're looking for. I encourage you to take a look at the announcements in the order of service and in our 2 email publications, which are This Week and our monthly newsletter, The Journey. Next Sunday, August 31st, parents and guardians are warmly invited to join the Soulful Parenting Meetup, which is an informal discussion group. It will meet at 11:50 in the Forest Church Room. Childcare will be provided. Please be sure to sign your children into the nursery before the session begins. And now, a friendly reminder to silence your phones to help maintain a worshipful atmosphere in this sacred space of community. I make that reminder very humbly as someone whose phone once rang when I was worship leading, so, okay. Thank you. As Unitarian Universalists, we invite you to know us not by our creeds, but by our deeds. That's because we have no shared mandatory creed. What binds us together instead is the covenant adopted by this congregation. The words are in your order of service and on the screen. I invite you to say the words along with me. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. Please join me in singing our call to worship. You will find your words in the order of service and on the screen.
Truth
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was beautiful. Each week, we receive an offering to support the work and mission of this church and to maintain the function and beauty of our building and grounds. You can make donations using our website or the QR code in the order of service. In addition to these modern methods, we still follow the time-honored tradition of passing the plate. Regardless of your choices about giving, we invite you to participate in this ritual by actually touching the offering plate. Please take it when it comes to you and pass it along to your neighbor. Our offertory ushers, Patty DeStefano and Rusty Turner, will now come forward to receive the offering. When they have finished, I will invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us in singing our offertory hymn, number 123, Spirit of Life. Please rise.
The reading is titled Bright Faith, and it is by Sharon Salzberg. The state of love-filled delight in possibilities and eager joy at the prospect of actualizing them is known in Buddhism as bright faith. Bright faith goes beyond merely claiming that possibility for oneself to immersing oneself in it. With bright faith, we feel exalted as we are lifted out of our normal sense of insignificance, thrilled as we are no longer feel lost and alone. The enthusiasm, energy, and courage we need in order to leave the safe path, to stop aligning ourselves with the familiar or the convenient, arises with bright faith. It enables us to step out, step away, and see what we can make of our lives. With bright faith, we act on our potential to transform our suffering and live in a different way. Bright faith can resemble blind faith. Both tend to be inspired by something or someone outside of ourselves that can send us off on sudden journeys around the world in pursuit of a dream. But blind faith is associated with an unthinking devotion that is mistakenly seen as the fulfillment of the journey of faith rather than an early step. Bright faith, on the other hand, is seen simply as a beginning, and not a beginning in which we surrender discriminating intelligence, but rather one in which we surrender cynicism and apathy. Its abundant energy propels us forward into the unknown. And thus ends our reading. And now Reverend Gretchen Haley begins. Writer Elizabeth Lesser tells the story of when she traveled to Jerusalem under the guise of tourism, but in truth as a way of dealing with her messed up marriage and off-track life. One day, she found herself drawn to a narrow, dusky shop, so she went in. In the back of the room, she found two men drinking tea at a low table. After a while, the younger of the men came forward to greet her and looked at her as if he was trying to read the secrets of her heart. And then he said in perfect English, "Come, you will like this picture," and took her towards a framed piece of art. At that point, the older man came to greet her and placed his right hand on his heart and bowed his head in the traditional Islamic greeting. "See the rose?" he asked. Framed in dark wood, it was an image of a rosebud with shimmering pale petals holding one another in a tight embrace. Under the flower was an inscription with the words that are printed on the screen right now by Anais Nin. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. As Lesser read it, she found her eyes stinging with tears. "What is wrong?" the young man asked her. "Nothing is wrong," she tried. "I'm fine." "No, you are in pain. And do you know why you are in pain? Because you are afraid." "Afraid of what?" she asked, wondering how he could see so clearly into her heart. "Afraid of yourself," the man replied, and he placed his hand on his chest and patted his heart. "You are afraid to feel your real feelings. You are afraid to want what you really want. Just what the painting says, your heart is like the flower. Let it break open. What you want is waiting for you in your heart. The time has come." Reverend Haley continues, "Most of us recognize this kind of moment, both the struggle Lesser was in and the hope of following a new path, the hope of finally blossoming after holding our lives tight in a bud. We get it because we've had it in one way or another. Overcome with loss or struggle or the pain of trying to make sense of the world for all its senselessness, we go in search of a new way. And somehow, that new way presents itself. And we respond with yes, despite no new evidence, no change in fact of circumstances, just a new conviction. And then we follow it through. This is faith. And when life is falling apart, there is nothing more important. To be able to say, despite any proof to support such an idea, there remains another way. To be able to say we can choose love, or that love chooses us, and love can make a difference. To hold on to that vision, that imagination, and to live as if it were true, and to make it so by living it that way. This is life-saving faith. In the Christian framing of this story, we might call that struggling place sin. After all, sin in its fullest sense simply means to describe a state of separation. Separation from one another, from our truest self, and from the source of life itself. Which, to be clear, assumes that right living comes when we are in right relationship with all of these three: self, other, and the spirit of life. And so, separation in any would mean living a less than ethical life, less than the life we are called to live. Taken this way, it's pretty clear that sin is its own punishment, as our Universalist tradition has long claimed. In Lesser's story, she was separated in all of these ways, from those around her, her husband and children, her travel companions, her country, separated from her truest values and the spirit of life calling to her, and separated from herself. The invitation in the Israeli shop was to return to relationship with all of these, to open herself to all of these, to live beyond fear and in love. In that moment, something in her surrendered. She allowed herself to not simply imagine a world beyond her suffering, but to take steps to change her life. As Sharon Salzberg described it from our reading, this feeling that allows for actualizing possibilities, this love-filled delight and eager joy, is described in the Buddhist tradition as a state of bright faith. As Salzberg says it, bright faith, we feel exalted as we are lifted out of our normal sense of insignificance, thrilled as we no longer feel lost and alone. And it is this feeling of joy that propels us forward, allows us to risk opening ourselves up to a new and greater love. This is a different way of thinking about faith than many of us have been taught. Faith is so often thought of as an intellectual assent to some particular beliefs, but in this model, faith in its earliest stages is a feeling of joy and safety, like the earliest feelings of being in love. In this state, intellectual assent has no bearing. You only know goodness, that there is goodness, and it's good. And so let's have more of that. Perhaps if you think back to your earliest days in this religious community or in another Unitarian Universalist congregation, you may remember feeling like this. Reverend Haley remarks, I know for me, the feeling I had when I discovered my first Unitarian Universalist congregation remained to me quite tangible. I cried through the whole service as I felt overwhelmed by a sense of joy and energy. I think I cried through the first 3 or 4 services I attended. It was like this great release, an exhale. I felt hopeful, and like the world I longed for was actually possible, and I wanted to be a part of making it so. Maybe some of our new members that we've recently welcomed and are feeling this kind of energy. Maybe these are the feelings that led you to say yes to the promise of membership, to say yes to partnering with this community of faith as we live as if love matters. I hope so. As we think back on our journeys of faith, I wonder what each remember about those earliest feelings, what we can say about their source, and what made us receptive to those feelings. Salzburg describes that most often the source of bright faith is external. A person or a place or words or ideas, any of these that grab hold of our heart and open us up, change us. I know it may seem trivial, but the source for me back in that first Unitarian church was the greeter at the front door. She saw my partner and I as a couple, and she welcomed us. And the next week, she remembered us and welcomed us again, which, yes, I do hope inspires more of us to be greeters on Sundays. You never know who needs to see you, who needs you to remember them, and what your kindness will mean. I was receptive to these bright faith feelings because I had been having the opposite experience in my family and in the religion of my childhood. I had been feeling lost, and I yearned to be found. Without such a yearning and a struggle, without being so heartbroken, I am not sure I would have been as receptive to the experience I had that first and following Sundays. In the Christian narrative, faith comes in response to a confession of sins. Remember, separateness. A confession of feeling separated from yourself, from others, from God. But I've wondered, what if you aren't feeling separate? Do things have to be broken apart in order for faith to matter? After thinking about it a lot, I've decided the answer is yes and no. Yes, because ultimately faith matters only when another world is needed. Faith is an act of imagination and life orientation, and you don't need imagination or living as if something were true if it is already true. If this world and the life you have right now is already enough, you don't need to create another. Only when you believe life is less than whole or less than what it could be, are you compelled into partnership with the creation of this new and better world. And yet, you need not be living in this state of deficiency in order for faith to take hold of your heart. Which is good news for us Unitarian Universalists, not just because of our core assertion that people are not inherently sinful, but inherently good, but also good news because we are so often people who live far from life's edges with abundant resources and a profound sense of security and goodness, which is not to say our lives can't be a mess, but even with all these blessings, still, faith calls to us. For the power of bright faith is its capacity not only to call you into a new life, but in the love-filled experience, immediately teach you why such a life is needed. Not because the prior life was bad or you were bad, but because life keeps getting more possible. Beauty grows. and we need all of us to live within the reach of love and its abundant gifts. It's like the moment of holding my daughter for the first time. I had no idea what my life was lacking until life called me into a greater joy. And it was perfect and could get no better until a couple years later, it happened again with my son. And it's like the first time I sat with an immigrant facing deportation in the courtroom. I was there with other Unitarian Universalist clergy. We held him in prayer and song. We were all held in prayer and song, surrounded by both love and hope, as well as heartbreak and suffering. I felt at once the great sense of how my life was blessed, that I was okay, and yet life itself was not. And so I was not. The Foothills Unitarian Church has been going through an interim time, and a lot has been changing, and it feels almost as if we are creating a whole new church. 6 months ago or so, I wondered how it all would work, because I realized that for many of us, another world was not necessary. The one we have had is just right. There's so much goodness here. There is no separation. There is wholeness and holiness. And yet, I have this sense, and the board has this sense, we have this sense, this vision for us that is more. But how do we talk about this more without appealing to a narrative of deficiency? Because there is indeed so much that is right. Faith may seem unnecessary or irrelevant, right? Except the thing is, bright faith keeps happening. It has happened here today for some of you, I'm sure, because there is so much beauty here, and we keep making more of it. And from these experiences, we will discover both the goodness of what has been and also the possibility of something more. And from this, we will feel compelled to act. Reverend Haley continues, we, the Foothills Unitarian Church, as we have been, and are yet to become, we will be born again and again. In these moments that strike us so deeply, unpredictably, grab hold of us, we will be born of our memories of the past experiences that filled us so fully and compelled us and tell us who we are. And we will be born of these moments we experience during this interim time. Moments of joy and love and beauty. We need more choir singing of the ways life is all connected. More sharing our stories in small groups. More building relationships with immigrant families. More learning together. We need to read stuff together. Sing together, try new things together. Not because what we have is not enough, but because bright faith is not a one-time experience, but always being offered anew for a new age. During any interim time, some of what we do together will be less than joyful for sure. And that will be important information too. But also, some of it will lead us to a beauty we had never before realized was possible. And some of it will lead us to understand the ways that our lives may be okay, but life itself is not. And we, this church, our church, is compelled to act, to step out, step away, and see what we can make of our shared lives, to see where love calls us to now. And still, my friends, this is just the beginning. Bright faith is just the beginning. While it is good to arrive, good to feel this feeling of surrendering cynicism and apathy and imagining all the possibilities, The energy only matters when it actually leads to the work. As my colleague, the Reverend Mike Moran, likes to say, spirituality is not a spectator sport. You have to dive in. We've had sermons about spiritual disciplines or spiritual practices. In this congregation, you are invited to a whole host of potential practices, a path of 5 that will help move you along towards what the Buddhists describe as verified faith. Come to worship regularly. Connect in with the community. Build relationships with those around you. Grow in spirit through small groups or classes, and then serve within or beyond the congregation. And finally, give of your resources in gratitude for all we have been given. These things will transform elation and energy into depth and maturity so that our experience of faith is anything but superficial or temporary. In our community of faith, let us put love-filled delight in the center of our vision, and let this joy call us forward into a day we cannot yet even imagine. And then let us dive in, do the work that is required. All those disciplines and practices, they are fun too, it turns out. Let's do that work, bearing the light of love for one another and for the world, so that we might keep on sharing and growing all of this beauty. May it be so. The Reverend Gretchen Haley.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. I want to say a couple of things about the closing hymn, This Little Light of Mine. First of all, it's number 118 in your hymnal. Also, the words are on the screen, which will free you up to participate as enthusiastically as you want. And I invite you to go for it. Also, if you don't want to look at the hymn book and you don't want to look at the screen and you just want to dance around, I will tell you the verses are just, this little light of mine. Second verse, everywhere I go. Third verse, building up a world. Hymn number 118, This Little Light of Mine. We'll sing all the verses. Please remain standing after for the benediction. I invite the song leaders up. as Bruce returns to extinguish all our flames, and as we each go our way, I offer you these words of Becca Reynolds. May love permeate your every heartbeat. May faith guide your every step. May truth and compassion be your eternal traveling companions. And may a deep, abiding spirit rest joyously in your every waking wish and your every resting dream. Amen, and blessed be.